The Lusa will forever shine. like say, well, let's say good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to another edition of the program, Profile Liberia. On this show, indeed, we put Liberia itself under the microscope. Forensically, we deal with the issues. Indeed, my special student, usual guest analyst for these for my shows, Mr. Fidel Bully will be here soon with us. We're taking a step back. We're talking about. All right, hang on 1 minute. We're talking about they call it check and balance. Okay, because sometimes when you're doing things, those of us that adult. Either we've been working with projects or so, you have what they call monitoring and evaluation in every project, in every company, in any organization or NGO, whatever. You must have that in place. It's referred to as monitoring and evaluation. That will help you to build the institution, to see, to always go back and check. Where you were yesterday, how I was staying and how you dealt with, different things and whatsoever. So anything that you need to cover on after checking, going back to check, sometimes you discover things, say, oh, we should have done this better, or based on the, how they call it, because most of the time, for some entity, they do this, what they call evaluation, where individuals from outside can evaluate them as well. So they take those into very, very serious consideration, and because that will help them for their institution to build up. And so we have decided on this show that yesterday was the 22nd, 22nd year of January. Officially, yesterday was the day that on this day last year, 2018, sorry, Mr. George Weah took over the gavel of authority as the president of the Republic of Liberia. Yes, 12 months, 1 year, of course, as it is, into office. We want to see, we want to know, we want to find out. Let's go back from January 22nd, probably from that day, because that day was a very important day as well, because that's the day the blueprint was laid out by the president, the inaugural speech, the inaugural address. Morovia came at standstill. Even Liberians in the diaspora that day, some of them, they were working, but actually they were paying more attention to what was happening back home than maybe they worked there. Some of them even took day off that day just to follow developments and news back home. And so we want to go back to see whether we can take some stuff that were said, from the president's statement. And we're going to try our best. Thank God my studio guest is going to be here for the period of time. The speech we have, for me, I have edited the version I want to do, not editing it by removing anything, but just try to reduce it to about at least 28 minutes or so. So we will go into the speech, maybe five minutes or so. And Mr. Fidel Bude is already here in studio with us. He will help us as well, together with you yourself that are watching as well. We're also live right now on our YouTube channel as well, for those of you who will be following there. But, just to understand, and each other we can also analyze whether we can match what was said that day, yesterday making it 1 year, what was said that day by our president, to match it with the reality on the ground. Is it happening? What was said, the promises that were made, or is it the other way around? So those are the issues we're going to be looking at. Welcome to the show. Is the Profile Liberia, of course, the platform where we always put Liberia itself under the microscope, and of course, macroscopically analyze issues and development from back home. Fidel, good evening to you and welcome to the show.
Good evening, Max. Thank you for having me.
It's great to see you again. Happy New Year once again.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you, and Happy New Year to all of your listeners as well.
Yeah, our wonderful followers, most of them, they've been asking you when you bring in, when Fidel coming. So it's a special greeting to you all now from Fidel himself. So he's here, and he's here and ready for the show. First of all, Fidel, before we commence the speech itself, you've been following that. I mean, the latest development yesterday on the program. What I'm going by virtue of what I've been seeing on Facebook, especially on social media, where Bishop Winker is being brought in the picture. That what he said there. Many Liberians, isn't going down well with them. That especially so saying that anybody who is actually speaking or maybe voicing out the ills of this government, God will hunt you. I don't know. You have seen it as well on social media. What is your take on this? This is a man of God as well. Of course, we respect him for that.
Well, the thing is, Max, I like, obviously I'm a geographer as well, but I like history, and I spend a lot of my time engaging with history of the countries and places that I have interest in. And the first thing I like to point out, I read the article in the Front Page Africa. I didn't actually go on social media to listen to what I read the article on the Front Page Africa, and I went back in my mind in history when Arsene Wenger first came onto the scene. It was during the regime of President Charles Taylor.
Okay.
This was at a time when everyone in the international community and a lot of Liberians who had fled Liberia were saying that President Taylor was a tyrant and he was brutal and he was, like looting the country. When all of those things were being said about President Taylor, Arsene Wenger came to the defense of the president. And it wasn't long after his public defense of President Taylor that we saw him driving one of those new Passat that many officials of the president's government had at the time. We kind of suggested that his hands had been greased by President Taylor, and that I think it was as relations advisor to the president of Liberia. So obviously, when Arsene Wenger has spoken in favor of a president in Liberia, history suggests it is because there's some personal gains for the individual. We saw that with President Taylor. I'm not saying for any reason that the accusations that were being made about President Taylor were true. I'm not saying that the accusations being made about President Weah are true. I'm just saying that when everyone else sees bad about a president of Liberia, Arsene Wenger steps out and say good things about that person, and usually he gets personal benefits for doing that. I wouldn't be surprised that it was because of that reason that he was called to preach, because obviously they knew that he had or has a very compromised characteristic as an individual, as a man of God, knowing that he can be manipulated financially or through material things, knowing that maybe some kind of kickback will help him say the right things. I wouldn't be surprised, and my observation as a political analyst, looking at things in Liberia, I would think and I would suggest that he's getting something out of it. It's not, like we say in Liberia, not for free. There's something in it for him. We saw that with President Taylor, and I can definitely guarantee you that there was something in it for him. That's why he said that, because it's not only ludicrous. And I like, I like the Front Page Africa piece. I don't always, enjoy the writing because sometimes they don't write very professionally.
Oh yeah, we sometimes we into that. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to look at
the analysis. Yeah. I mean, the reason most of the time, I think people appreciate your analysis is at least you sometimes you most of the time try to attach the historical part of it, because by virtue of you giving us such a background and reaching to this point, I mean, when you're voicing out we know definitely chronologically things are matching up also. But let's look at it from the point of view where this is a nation that, uh, you know, perhaps is hugely populated with Christians or so. And well respected, let me put it that way, he's already well respected because his church is one of the biggest churches in Liberia, and in terms of population, you know, people attending the church there. Does it really pose a kind of an embarrassment for the church across the board? Or, well, let's just leave it as a fantasy.
Sorry, Max. Am I still with you?
Yeah, you are.
Yeah. I think someone just started.
Yeah, no, we saw it. We saw it. You went stiff a bit, but you're back. Yeah. All right. Tell the people to give you small chance, please. So you
Oh, I don't know what's happening here, but someone, yeah. Anyway, if you still have me, I'll continue to talk. The thing is, first of all, I would just like to, clarify something you said. Arsene Wenger doesn't have a big church in Liberia. He has a big structure as
Oh,
a
really?
church, but
Okay. All right. Okay. I'm a bit confused when sometimes when I'm driving past you, I just see a lot of people there.
The population of the church membership is not that huge. A lot of people, it's like a revolving door. So, one of these doors that just go round and round like that. So people just go in and go out. He preached a lot of prosperity. Look, a real Christian, and I don't like using that term, or that concept of real Christian, because Christians should be Christians, yeah. But someone who actually believes in the Bible and somebody who actually follows the teachings of Jesus Christ will not go out and make a statement like that, because you cannot tell God what to do. You cannot tell God, I want you to punish these people. You're not judged. It's like you're judging people and asking God to be the executioner. God is not the executioner. He's the judge. For those of us who believe in God, God is the judge. He's not the executioner. So you can't go and judge people and then ask God to execute, to carry out the punishment. So God is like your police officer. God, yeah, these people don't like the president, so put them in jail. That's not how and that undermines his position as a clergyman. If you think that God is an executioner for someone, and that you as a bishop, you're a judge, that God will listen to your judgment and then go and saying, oh, I'm prophesying. That's not prophecy. Prophecy is about good things. Yes, there are times when, in the Bible, there are prophecies about things that are going to happen, to difficult things, but usually that prophecy of difficult things is followed by remedies to those difficult things. For example, there'll be, oh, there's a big famine coming, but you guys need to try and plant a lot of food this year and store up food for the next 5 years. That's how God tells people. A prophecy is about warning people of difficulties that they're going to experience. So that's, what he's doing is he's playing to the I can't even find it, but it's like the president loves people who will be sycophants, and he is playing to that tune. He knows that the president likes people, putting praise on him, and making him to turn out in public as being the be all and end all, and he's playing to that. And at the end of the day, he's doing himself a discredit, not the Christian community, because Christians will tell you that what he said is not Christian at all, because Jesus Christ didn't teach us to ask God to punish people. He taught us to forgive people. So he should be saying, anyone who's wrongfully criticizing the president forgive you, or Mr. President, forgive them. Let God be the judge. Let God deal with them. And you can't tell people that, oh, if you go against the president, God will punish you. God. That's not Christian.
Now, during the service as well, Fidel, just before we wrap up, that was because a host of them who were at the backstage were all bishop pastors. They selected from different churches. I'm not sure whether they're all from that church. No, but one of the bishops there spoke, and according to in Christianity, he said, I mean, normally they say the word when they happen to speak certain word and they say it's sealed, it means God ordained it, and God blessed it. And he said, God said that he is there, President Weah is there for 12 years and is sealed. I mean, what do you term that to be? This is a bishop of a church as well.
No. The thing is, I wouldn't look. God can reveal to Arsene Wenger. I don't know who said what you're talking about the 12-year thing. But if Arsene Wenger said,
yeah, it was another bishop. All of them were speaking one
so
after another.
if another bishop came up and said, I've had a vision from God, and God has said to me that President Weah will be president of Liberia for 12 years, it's possible. You know, I can't dispute that I wasn't in his vision. I don't know how he communicates with God. So it's possible that God would have spoken to him in a vision and said to him, look, you know, President Weah is someone that I've ordained to be there for. Look, and the thing is, what we shouldn't confuse here, Max, is God allowing something to happen with the person being good for the country. Those are two different things. God allows Saul to be king of Israel. Yeah, Saul was one of the worst kings that Israel ever had. But God allowed him to be king. He said, look, since you Israelites are begging me, oh, I want a king, we want a king, we want a king, we want a king, I will give you a king. So you can see how king can do. And then let's see. And you'll say you want hope for change, I will give you guys hope for change. And then you will see how good hope for change is. And then you will realize. So the fact that God allows things to happen does not mean that those things are good ultimately for the people. He allowed the Israelites to be conquered, I think by Syria. You know, Nebuchadnezzar came and invaded Israel, took the Israelites into exile. You know, he allowed the Israelites to be in prison in Egypt. And there were a lot of things that God allowed to happen. They're not always pleasant, but they're there to teach. Sometimes God allowed these things to teach us a lesson. So saying you're stupid enough to want someone like this, I will allow you to have someone like that. And then he will show you what you shouldn't be asking for. So God allows certain things to happen just to teach us a lesson. And I'm not saying that President Weah is one of those. I'm just trying to explain what God does, from time to time according to the Bible. And yes, God, it's possible that the bishop had a vision from God. It's very possible. And if it's true, then hey, amen to that. We will see whether he goes for 12 years. And sometimes, look, like I said, God allowed these things to happen to teach people a lesson. And maybe there's a lesson he wants to teach the Liberian people. And that's why he allowed us to have George Weah as our president. We don't know. It will be after the 12 years, according to the bishop, that we will find out why God allowed us to have George Weah. If after 12 years, Liberia is the most prosperous nation on the continent of Africa, then we say, well, the reason God wanted us to have George Weah is because George Weah made
Are you being cautious using the word 12 years?
Sorry?
Are you being cautious using the word 12 years?
Oh, no, I'm being honest. What I'm saying is, look, the bishop is saying that he had a vision. I wasn't in that vision. I don't know. It's very likely that he did have a vision. Christians can all, but the Bible said that in the last days, young men will have vision. Old people will see dreams. So at the end of the day, it's not something that is impossible. It's something that is very possible. And he might be very right. He did see a vision from God, and God did say to him that President Weah will be president for 12 years. What I am saying is that if that is the case, we will see the reason why God gave him that vision, that George Weah, right. And then in 12 years' time, we will see that vision, the reasons for the vision anyway.
I saw something on the program as well. I don't know in terms of whether you would term it to be in the context of African solidarity. We have a huge number of, especially nowadays, traditionally we got gospel musicians coming up, English wide there. But I mean, the program, I don't know who put the program together. They imported gospel musicians from Nigeria for the program. What is your general thought about that? You don't think it was about time maybe for us to promote our own culture and our own, perhaps even traditional singers from different countries or so? What is your take on that?
I'll give you a quick story. In 2017, I was in Liberia, Mother's Day. I was fortunate to go to a Bassa church that they have on Newport Street, opposite the old Ministry of Youth and Sports.
Yeah.
And when the Bassa choir, I can't understand Bassa, Max, but when the Bassa choir got up to sing, I was dancing. I don't even know what they were singing. One of my friends who invited me to the church was next to me, and she kind of explained to me what they were saying in Bassa. But my brother, the rhythm was so good. I was dancing. I honestly got up and danced, enjoyed myself. The church lasted till about 4 o'clock. I wasn't complaining because I was having so much fun. The English choir would sing, the Bassa choir would sing. And when the Bassa choir get on, my brother, the old man didn't know how to sing this thing some kind of way, my brother. The point is, look, would Nigeria invite, if the Nigerian president was having a Thanksgiving service, would he invite an imam from Liberia, because he's Muslim? Would he invite an imam from Liberia to go and preach? I don't think so. I think he would have a Nigerian imam preach. If the president of Sierra Leone was having a Thanksgiving service, if he's Christian, for example, would he invite a gospel artist from Liberia? I don't believe so. Unfortunately, this has been the way that we've done things as Liberians, which is wrong. We've got a lot of gospel artists in Liberia, a lot of them. Even if you don't want to use a Liberian gospel artist based in Liberia, we've got a lot of gospel artists, Liberians outside of Liberia that you could invite. You know, the president led morale, according to what people who know him say. So he probably wanted to boost his morale by bringing somebody from outside Liberia. That's fine. Bring a Liberian from Europe or from America who's a gospel artist and let him come and sing. It still boosts your morale. It still means like, oh yeah, the president imported somebody from America to come in and sing, or from Australia. Oh, the president came from Sweden. But at least let them be a Liberian so that we can then promote our own people. And whatever you paid Iban, for example, to come and perform, you could pay that to a Liberian person, knowing fully well. And I was having a conversation with one of my colleagues from the States yesterday, knowing fully well that part of that money, even if the person lives in America, part of that money will remain in Liberia. But Iban came, collected a check, he took everything with him back to Nigeria. You know, not if you invited someone like Precious Tool from here to go and sing, she will release more of that money in Liberia before she come back. You know, not all of it will come back here because she got a charity there that she's supporting. She would take some of that and invest in her charity.
Family members are
with albinism in Liberia. So those are the things, you know, someone who is insightful as a leader, you know, an insightful leader will contemplate those kind of things and like, you know what? Yes, I'm going to be spending my personal money, but let me spend my personal money in a way that it could empower my own people. You know, by inviting someone who's tied to Liberia so that that person can leave some of that money here, if not all of it. You know, if it was someone like Juliandi, Juliandi is a gospel singer, isn't she? Oh no, she's the cultural. I think she's the cultural dancer. What's the lady?
Canvi Adams.
Canvi Adams, that's the one I'm looking for. Carry my load. You know, you have those people there.
Great release before the inauguration or right after inauguration, did a very heavy release.
Yeah, you know, you can take someone like that to, you know, and she's a big name. She's not an ordinary gospel singer. She's a big name in Liberia. I remember going to some of my friend's wedding and playing Ambassador Adams music, and people are like, who's that singing? I'm like, hey, she's from Liberia. And, you know, and they don't even be like, whoa, that's very good music. And, you know, and look, I wouldn't do it. The president has his reasons for why he did it, but I wouldn't do that. I would rather give the money to a Liberian gospel artist, even if it's someone from behind the horse that nobody have heard about. Give them that platform and give them that money.
Especially so when our musicians, they're struggling. Most of them, they don't even have their own bands. That's the whole thing. They don't even have it. So, and these guys that came, these are heavy guys. They have their own bands. They didn't even travel their whole band set. They just small portion of what they brought. Also, but like, I agree with you, quite frankly, in terms of empowering Liberians also. But let's go to the I will find that piece and play it later on. But let's go to in fact, I got a piece here. Let me just throw in. We take a short musical break. Take this piece, and then from there, we will start the show. Welcome to the show. Is as a program profile Liberia, Fidel Budi. Of course, he's still the second the Secretary General of the Union of Liberian Organizations. He, our boss here, Secretary General for us here in the UK, Secretary General, but he actually not representing the organization here. He's a political analyst on our shows here, and he's here this evening. We are going to be analyzing the speech made by President George Weah on the day that he took power, and we are also trying. We will be trying as well, together with my guest analyst, to match this speech, hopefully word by word, to with respect to what is happening on the ground. But let's take this short musical break here. Latest one from Ambassador Kamil. Liberia will rise again. All right, welcome back to the show. We are back. We're going to go straight now to the speech. We're going to start up. Thank you, all of you that are sharing the video as well. I've seen some of you guys sharing it. Thank you so much. I won't be able to call each one of your names also, but thank you for sharing the video, and thank you for inviting others to come on the show as well. It's great. Comments are welcome as we go along as well. Even what we've just been talking about the importation of gospel singers on a national event like this. It is now a concert. The statement made by Archbishop Ashley Winker as well. If you are also welcome to make your own contribution, just write it down there and we will read it later on. But let's go to this speech, the famous speech yesterday, make it 1 year.
My fellow citizens, I am humble and thankful for the trust and hope you have put in me. I am filled with joy and proud to see so many friends across the world join us in celebrating what is truly an historic moment for our country. To all our citizens and international guests, we thank you for coming. I have spent many years of my life in stadium, but today is a feeling like no other. I'm overwhelmed with the crowd and the energy here today, and I guarantee you, when we finish, there will not be a winner or a loser. Today we all wear the jersey of Liberia, and the victory belongs to the people, to the peace, and to our democracy.
All right, let's see. Let's not go too deep, but let's just try to grab it bit by bit. This version, there will be no winner or loser. If you go in your head, what in his head, what was he trying to tell us?
I think, what the president was suggesting is that, at the end of the day, we will win together as a country, and then we will lose together as a country. So usually when you go and watch a football match, there are two teams, and one team will eventually win, even if there's going to be a replay. One team will eventually win. And what he was trying to do is use the football metaphor and say, look, in this case, we're not playing to win. We're not playing to lose. We're playing as a country. There's one team. So instead of two teams, we're one team playing together. So we can't, it's a metaphor to suggest that we win together and we lose together.
So, I mean, in terms of, let's match that now, that version of the speech with the reality. You're just coming from Liberia and you're doing quite a great deal there as well. In fact, we have to talk a little bit before you go about that. Can we synchronize that with the reality of today?
Not in my opinion. I think obviously I listen with keen interest to the comments made by the political leader of the ANC a few weeks ago, in which he criticized the president for not doing well in the interest of the Liberian people, suggesting that officials of the government were looting the coffers of the country at will without being punished, and also that the ordinary people, the burden on the ordinary people was increasing by the day. The evidence from my recent visit to Liberia suggests that things have gotten worse for those at the bottom of the chain. So the ordinary people who were already struggling under the previous government have continued to struggle, and their struggles have increased in some ways. And in that light, giving look, 1 year is a very short period of time for massive changes to be achieved. I don't think I wasn't sitting there a year ago expecting, before I remember writing a piece of news as a newspaper news organization based in Sweden, and I wrote a piece in the published, and I said, look, the people who voted for President Weah need to be wary because they might expect a quick fix, but given the global climate in terms of the economy, the world economy at the time, it was going to be difficult for any president, to achieve a lot in 1 year. I was saying that against the backdrop that I was hopeful that he was going to come in and really do the work of the Liberian people in the interest of all Liberians. I remember suggesting back then that one of the problems we had was the recurring expenditure of our government is so high because you've got people on big and really fat paychecks, like the national legislators. Those guys take home arguably close to $15,000 each every month. That's a burden on the Liberian government. A government that depends on foreign organizations and countries to help bolster our national budget can't justify giving officials. And I was on a train ride today from London, and I was thinking about it. I'm like, if we reduced the salaries of representatives from 15,000 to 1,000 a month, most of the people who are in the House right now will never run to be representatives because they'll be like, why am I going to work for 1,000 for? I'm gonna go spend all that money to run campaign and come pay me 1,000. A lot of them, and what we will end up having will be true representatives of the people. It will probably be some kind of market woman from Weah that will run for that district to come, and not someone who lived in Moravia all their life and then go and run in Weah just because they got the money to win and then collect 15,000 every month. If we reduce the salaries of our representatives, I'm not talking about the senators because that would leave that for another time, but just the representatives. If we reduce the salary to 1,000 a month, no allowance, no scratch card, no gas slip, just $1,000. Let's see how many Liberians are that patriotic to run to be representatives. Not many, And the point I'm making is, look, the recurring expenditure is so high, so you're going to struggle because you can't reduce it. The representatives will not allow you to reduce their wages. He tried to reduce the salaries of members of the executives. We've not seen the benefits of that. He said, oh, we saved 6 million. Where did the 6 million go? You can't tell us how you spend the 6 million. So, look, in that aspect, in terms of all of us winning together, I don't think that is the case. The president, as we've seen, has developed his personal assets significantly in the 1 year. So even though, the rest of the country, and look, let's agree, I don't believe it, but let's agree that the money he's using is his personal money. It does not look good that you are president of a country where people are struggling to eat and then you're building mansions. It doesn't look good. Even if it's your own money, it does not look good.
Okay.
And that's not winning together because you're developing yourself and then the ordinary people are not being developed. It don't look good. Even if it's his own money, it does not look good that you're president of one of the poorest countries on the planet, with one of the worst economies in the world, and then you're developing your personal assets like that, whilst your people, look, keep the money in the bank for now. The day you retire from presidency, then you develop your assets.
Develop your assets.
You know? Because it does not look good. Even if it's his own money, I don't believe it is his own money, but even if it is his own money, keep it, because it does not look good. So look, I don't think that part of the speech matched what we've seen over the last year.
Okay, all right. Let's continue. I just saw somebody posting there that with the haters, we criticizing everything, but that's the goodness of democracy. But let's continue here with the president.
Somebody has to criticize.
The tens of thousands of Liberians here today, and many more in our community across the country who are listening, gathered together around radios in the Palava Hut. It is to you we are responsible to deliver the change you deserve. Indeed, we must deliver the change that our people need in order to transform our lives for the better. I promise to do everything in my power to be the agent of positive change, but I cannot do it alone. First, I call upon the rebuilt institution that hosts us today and from which the Vice President and I come, the legislative, our co-equal branch of government, to work with me to create and pass essential laws that are needed to complete the foundation of this nation. Together, we hold our citizens clarity on fundamental issues such as the land beneath their feet, freedom of speech, and how national resources and responsibility are going to be shifted from this capital to the county.
All right, let's hold the president there. He touched on three vital things I can get from him. I mean, responsible to us that as a president, yes, I agree with that one. Definitely, he's responsible. All of them that we're giving the power to, they are responsible to the citizens of Liberia, and that is why we have to counter-check them. We have to counterbalance them as well. He also talked about him being an agent of positive change, and that matched along with his campaign message, hope for change. Anyway, and then talking about the citizen of Liberia, clarity. Let's take those three components now and match it with the reality on the ground. What are your thoughts?
Well, the thing is, first of all, the president talked about the change that the people deserve, and when you look at where we are as a country, we have changed. Things have definitely changed in Liberia. We've seen the transfer of power from one democratically elected government to another. That's a change. We've not seen that since 1944. We've seen a president coming to power whose selection of top government officials have marginalized women significantly. So we've seen that change. And I'll touch on that in a little bit more. So we've seen change in the individuals who are now enriching themselves at the detriment of the Liberian people. So it was done under President Sirleaf. All we've seen now is that there's a new group of guys who have come in, and they're doing exactly the same thing, or even worse, of what they were accusing the previous regime of doing. So we've seen change in that regard. We've seen change in the fact that freedom of speech that he talked about protecting is under threat. We've seen the media being censored. Later on in his speech, he thanked President Sirleaf for protecting freedom of speech and protecting the media, something that he's not doing based on the reports that are coming from Liberia. We've also seen him talk about clarity in terms of the land beneath their feet, and when he was talking about land rights in Liberia. And I think on that note, obviously, I have to give the president comment, like I have to not appreciate, but to give him a pass, to say, look, he's done well on that front, because in September last year he signed into law the Land Rights Act 2018, something that President Sirleaf didn't do for 4 years. So that act was put forward to the National Legislature in 2014, and she didn't push it as much as she could have done. And it was President Weah who got it signed. So he's definitely that, he's done really well on that front. However, when it comes to clarity on how natural resources and other resources of the country have been spent, this government hasn't been very clear in terms of transparency. I was reading today because I had to go back and check. I think it was in February 2018 when President Weah went to France and he got 10 million euros for immediate road rehabilitation. So it wasn't a pledge that said, oh, we'll give it to you later. It was immediate. So it was an immediate pledge, money that would have come in probably within 3 to 4 months' time. We haven't had any report on whether the money came in, how did it come in, where was it used, which roads have been rehabilitated. We don't know. So again, he said that he wants to be clear on how our resources have been used, but in that instance and in other instances, he's not been clear. For example, the president said that he was going to re-roof all of the houses in Gibraltar where he grew up with his personal money. It turned out that they used money from the government coffers to do it. When the memo leaked to the public through the Front Page Africa newspaper, up until now, the government hasn't come out to clarify why it was done, and why the president pretty much lied to the Liberian people, because he told them I'll pay for it myself, and then took the money from the government coffers, and we were never going to find out, only until the Front Page Africa came out and said something like so. On those issues in terms of clarity, he hasn't really been clear with the Liberian people. There's a lot of things. You talk about the 16 billion, we're still waiting to hear about that. You talk about the 25 million that was put into mop up excess currency, the finance minister, and this, the thing is, this guy is supposed to be probably one of the most educated and experienced individuals in the government, the Honorable Samuel Tuwe. And he comes out, and this guy has worked for the African Development Bank. That's an international development institution.
Yeah.
So in the Liberian people can say, book, you should know what you're doing. For you to come out and tell people who know something that, the 25 million we took it and gave it to money changers in Yuku Town and I think Vi Town or something like that. That is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard anyone in any part of even if an accountant of a small company, a $5 million a year company comes out and tell members of the board, oh yeah, the money you gave me, I went and gave it to some money changers on the street. You get sacked the next day, because that's like so dumb for any human being to say, let alone someone who is so educated, so experienced. It was one of the first individuals that President Weah appointed. And I personally sat down after looking at this guy CV. I'm like, wow, this is a very, very good appointment. I sat in my office and like, yes, I like this. This guy has got experience from the African Development Bank. He's worked, in financial institutions, worked in the Liberian financial system. He's educated. He's got, I think, a master's degree as well. So, and I was so excited. I'm like, yeah, this is a good. And for him to then turn around and make a statement as stupid as that, you're thinking, what is he thinking? How can you tell a country? Now we got banks. I counted at least about 6 to 7 commercial banks in that country. The people who have the bulk of the Liberian dollars are Lebanese businessmen, Fula businessmen, Medingo businessmen, and women. These people are the importers and exporters of business of major goods in Liberia. They sell to the market women. The market women buy from them in Liberian dollars. These guys have millions of Liberian dollars in the bank. All you need to do is deposit this money in these banks. The bank call their big customers, say, look, you got 2 million Liberian dollars here. We're going to change it to US dollars for you. Swap it over, take the Liberian dollars, send it to the central bank. There's a money trail. There's a paper trail. You can see exactly how, and then you tell the country, I gave it to money changer then. I, Max, take money from my university here to go to Liberia to do research. I'm talking about 2,000, 3,000 pounds. If I came back to the university and said, oh, the money you gave me, I went and changed it to money changer, they will actually pay them their money back. Because I need to prove that I spent. My brother, I go to Liberia, and everywhere I go, I got to be running. When I go to the gas station, soon the men see my card, they can get there. Because I come in, ask them, my man, give me receipt. Because I have to come back and prove to the people how I spend their money.
I spend the money.
And you are the finance minister of a republic, and you're telling me that you can't show proof because you get the money to money changer. That is just, and that's damaging his own reputation. Look at Amara Konen. Amara Konenkov left Liberia. He went and worked for the United Nations. Do you think the United Nations would look at someone like Weah after doing something as dumb as this to give him a job? You're damaging your own reputation as an individual. Forget about this government. Your reputation, because this government will go. You will still be around. You will still need a job. You're damaging your own personal reputation. The president didn't tell you to go give money to money changer.
No way. No way.
Shouldn't be. I don't believe that President Weah told Samuel Weah, don't put the money in the bank, go give it to money changer. Then
go and get to the boys.
I don't believe that the president would do that. I do not believe that the president would tell. And even if I was a minister of finance and the president told me to go give money to money changer, I said, Mr. President, I can't do it. I need to show the Liberian people how the money was spent. If the president wants to fire me, let him fire me.
Fire me.
But you have to think about your own personal reputation. You are a financier, an economist. You work for the African development, but in Liberia, we say you're not small potato. So why would you do something dumb like that? Say I take the money and give it to money changer. Why? And then you come on radio and say the thing too.
All right, thank you. That's Mr. Fidel Bully, of course. He's also here in the United Kingdom and our regular political analyst and analyst of situations in Liberia. You are on the program, the Profile Liberia. Thank you so much, all of you, for your comments as well. Wilson Jerry, that is Samuel Weah for you, bro. And Liberians, people see nothing wrong with that. Of course, let's continue with the speech.
People expect better cooperation and more action from their government. We can do better together. Today, Liberians have reached an important milestone in the never-ending journey for freedom, justice, and democracy. A surge that has remained central to our history as a nation. Many of those who founded this country left the pain and shame of slavery to establish a society where all will be free and equal. But that vision of freedom, equality, and democracy has not yet been realized. That human longing for the true and lasting freedom has revealed itself in many ways since time has been divisive and confrontational, and too often violent, bloody, and deadly, as it was in the 40 years of civil conflict, when the essence of equality and unity led us down the path of destroying our own country. Notwithstanding the harshness and the immeasurable cost of the lesson, we have learned that equality and freedom are never just a final destination that the people or a nation reaches. These are the fundamental human rights that our people deserve, and that must be held up and measured against our action, our policy, our laws, and our people are those elected to serve the people.
Fidel, if we stop there, if I sum this whole part, this is why you're talking about the good virtues of who is a citizen, who is a what constitutes a patriotic citizen, and our own social responsibility to the country and people as well. If I sum the whole thing, um, can we match it to what we're seeing? You just been laying some foundations as well, and giving us some synopsis of perhaps some of the things that we need to improve more. But up to now, people are complaining.
Well, I think the president, that part of the speech was a foundational block, because what he's talking about is the history of the country. That the foundation of our country was based on the quest for freedom, quest for equality. Obviously, we know the history of Liberia, where free slaves left the US, came to Africa to try and form a country where they could all be free and equal. That has never been the situation in Liberia, because we know the American-Liberian class for many years oppressed indigenous Liberians, which led to the 1980 coup, which led to the Civil War, and on and on and on and on. And the point he made, in there is quite relevant to Liberia. That look, we need to get to a point where we can treat each other as human beings and as equals, and that people can have good human dignity, and that people can live in a society where they feel like the government is working in all of their interests, not just in the interest of a few. Has the president done that? I would say no, but with a caveat, because I think it's too early to judge him on that. I think so far he has said some good things in light of trying to be a president that's going to work in the interest of equality and freedom in Liberia, but the actions haven't matched the words. Again, I go back to the optics of the constructions that the president is carrying on. Like I said, even if it's his own money, it doesn't look good. It does not look good that it's like, if you leave the UK, Max, and you go to, like what I do when I leave the UK and I go to rural parts of Liberia, I live like the people.
Yeah.
I do not carry all the amenities that I have here with me. I was in Bomi County in Senje for 3 months in 2017. I slept with Chani Lantern. I used to go stand on the tree to get my reception to make a call. I used to take bath in the creek with all of the people. I ate in the same food bowl that they ate in, and we did this, the same routines that they carry out. When you go in communities like those, and then the first thing you do, you enter the community, the room that they gave you to stay in, you empty the room, plaster the walls, put all kind of, make your place so nice and different. People start to look at you different. Oh, well, who does this guy think he is? He thinks he's better than us. You come here and then you want to live different. And I think, look, it just looks bad that you're talking about equality, but then you're developing yourself when the ordinary person can't develop themselves. You're aspiring to greater things when the ordinary person cannot aspire to greater things. There are people in Liberia who want to own homes. There are a lot of people who want to own homes in Liberia. The president, I remember, I think it was sometime last year, beginning part of last year, signed this agreement for some company to come and build new houses, cheap houses in Liberia. We've not seen one block being laid yet, but yet the president's houses are nearing completion. He's built himself a new church, and he's redone most of his homes. So it's like, okay, but at least when Cummings said, "Oh, let the people eat before you eat," at least let's have at least 50 of these new homes ready, so people can be in it. And then when you're building your house, it will say, "Well, but the president already not gave you 50 houses, then I need that man be one house too." So it makes sense, even if it's your own money, but the ordinary people are still living in slums, man. Yes, you go and pave the road in Duo community. And I was saying to someone recently, I said, look, do I want Duo community to have roads? Yes, I want Duo community to have roads. But is Duo community having road crucial to the Liberian economy right now? No. So let's put the road somewhere where it's crucial. For example, red light. Red light is crucial to the Liberian economy because a lot of businesses go on in red light. So fix the road in red light instead of going fix Duo community. Why? Because you want to prove to your voters that you didn't forget them. We're not here to prove to people you didn't forget. You have to do things that will benefit the general public, not just the 61% that voted for you. You have to benefit everyone. Paving the roads in red light is more important than putting paved roads in Dole community. Yes, I got friends who live in Dole community. I've got an auntie that lives in Dole community, and they're happy now. But they're not contributing anything to the economy in terms of there's no market in Dole community that we have to take food from to supply Monrovia with. To say, oh, we need this road here because the market in Dole community needs to supply food to Monrovia. No. Red light supplies food to Monrovia. There's not a lot of traffic there. People waste a lot of time there. Taxi drivers go there. They spend more time than they should be spending there. That's affecting the economy. They're wasting money. So fix things that will benefit the general public. Then you go and start doing your novelty projects so that the people can clap for you. And those are some of the things that we're talking about. So in terms of equality, the president is not demonstrating that yet with the optics. The people haven't seen any improvements in their lives. All they've seen is their lives get worse, whilst the guys at the top, my brother, all of my friends who I know who are in this government, these people there, everybody has now put fence around, and those who didn't even have houses now. You think, you said at your turn, so you do your thing. We're watching, but that's not how it don't look good, because you think, look, I say to people, look, yes, our people might be significantly uneducated academically, but it does not mean. I had a grandmother, Max, my mother's mother, who never sat in a classroom, but she gave me some of the most inspirational words that I live on today. Some of the things that have driven me in my life, so much so that my daughter is named after my grandmother, because she was so inspirational, even though she didn't sit in a classroom, no academic anything once in her life. So it doesn't mean because people didn't go to academic classes that they don't see things, they can't understand, they can't comprehend. And sometimes I think politicians in Liberia take advantage of Liberian people because they believe that these people cannot comprehend what is going on. But they will be surprised that these people do comprehend and they do understand what's going on, and that they will react. That they, and what Cummings, what the leader of the ANC was saying at the time, something that I align myself with. Look, I think as a world, not just a country, but as a world, we've gone back on political radicalism. Yeah, everybody's stuck on social media these days. They're clicking their thumbs, signing online petitions and that kind of stuff. You don't see those many people in the streets anymore with placards in their hands like we saw with the 16 billion in Liberia. These days everybody is a social media protester. And I think as a world, not just Liberia, as a world, when we see horrible things happening, like what we're seeing happening in Liberia, money going missing, finance minister coming out telling you they take 25 million to money changes. Those are things that are insulting to the integrity and intelligence of the Liberian people. They need to come out, peacefully protest and say, look, we ain't stupid. We know what's going on. You better come with a different story. Because if people believe that they can get away with these things, they will continue to do it. And I think on that issue of equality, the Liberian people need to get up, get together. They need to protest and say, look, we do not agree with the way things are going, because you got one group of people who are getting so rich overnight, and then the rest of the people are either stagnated or getting worse by the day. And that is not equality, not according to what the president said in his speech.
So that doesn't match with what the president said. Let me take some of your comments as well. For those of you, thanks to all of you that contributing. I'm not going to recognize just everybody, but I will try to read your comments as well. Okay. The man of God blundered yesterday by saying such nonsense to Liberians. I know he went home and asked God to forgive him or for forgiveness. All right, quickly today, he didn't say that you are lying. And okay, what? Okay, this lady, Nancy Jordan, he didn't say that you are lying and you need to stop. Okay, thank you so much for your contribution as well. Watson, That's how Charles Taylor is in jail today. No one was telling him the truth. Okay. Lee Ali Stan, he said, these are people that have been working behind the scene and they have been exposed. Okay, they say Watson is back. That is not the God I worship. Okay, Lee Ali Stan, he's back. Is sorry, I don't know he or she. You are right, my brother. He should be the one telling the president to forget, not to react. Okay, this one quickly. Back from Stan again. It was Prince Y. Johnson. Right, brother. Josephine Faconia, all the way from Morovia as well. Lusu Yama. Let's go down. God sent isn't always good. That's Samuel Garson Williams. Let's see. For Fedis Colère. Yes, my brother. That is the best information you are given. Okay, thank you too. Lucy Yama, he was alone in his vision, brother. That's the time we're talking about vision for president to be in for 12 years. Okay, let's go back to Stan. When you coerce God, this is how he ends. How it ends. The children of Israel did that and got the wrath of King Saul, and he was born in their neck. All right, so that's another one in there. Fedis Colette, but my brother, that man lie us in. But my brother, that man lies to the Liberian people. Yes. Okay, Nancy, how do you know that that was the president invited the president to sing? Oh, come on. Okay, that's the same Lucy Jordan. Telling us that we're not saying anything true here. Lutricia Howe Nelson, so true. She is good gospel singer. I think that's the time we're talking about Ambassador Kevin Adam. Please get your facts together before talking. Nancy Jordan, thank you again. And then Nancy came back to say haters hates everything that is good for Liberians, and you are one of them. Thank you so much again. We appreciate your comment. I'll read all of them. John Golo, Max, you have a sound political analyst on your show today. He seems to be a sound guy that knows the issues at stakes, and he's sharing a thoughtful analysis. Thank you so much, Brother John, all the way there from the States. Wilson Jerry, that is Samuel 12 for you, my brother. And Liberians people see nothing wrong with that. Yeah. Priscilla Kumemaya, so lies. Twer is a big liar. Okay, Lusu Yama, Twer them making fun of the Liberian people, my brother, but we look for it. Oh, another one though. The 25 million USD, Oliver Che, the 25 million USD infused in Liberian economy to mop out the excess liquidity is discovered here on Samuel Twer's land. Okay, there's a photograph there. Those of you that are on Facebook Live, for those of you on listening via the radio, just reading this for you as well. Okay, Lucy Yama, you are making a very good analysis. Thank you so much, Joanna Johnson Winker. Absolutely agreeing with Lucy there. Wilson Jerry, a very great point in an analysis. Please teach, educate, or us more about our history and doing a right thing. Thank you. Quickly to this, Fedis Colère, things are not good in this country now, my brother. Maybe we'll get in there. Okay, James Wisnant say the brother is pretty analytical, calm and giving us facts. Thank you. Mavis GPA civil discussion. Thank you so much. Okay, Amos George, also from the States. The president Weah said Liberians no longer be spectators in Liberia, but all the contract is being given to Lebanese and Indians. Okay, that's another one. Nathaniel Zumo, the last one here, just before we go back to the president's speech, it says here, what a great analyst. Thank you so much. Let's go back to the president's speech.
Max, can I just say something quickly before you go back to the president's speech? Just to the lady, I think it was, I don't know, it was the Watson or Nancy or whoever it was. I'll read exactly what Wenger said. He said, God should rise up against anyone who will rise up against the leadership of the Liberian president. That's what he said. So it's asking God to be an executioner. That's what I said, and it was based on facts. So I got my facts right.
All right. I hope Luce, I know her name. You got it. Okay, let's go back to the speech. Keep putting on your points. I will read them later. Let's go back again and do another maybe 7 minutes or so.
Almost 50 years ago, Liberians laid down their arms and renewed their hope for a better and more equal society. With the help of regional partners, the United Nations, we chose democracy as our path and elected the first post-war government, which was led by Her Excellency Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. Your Excellency, I thank you for laying the foundation upon which we can now stand in peace and to advance progress for our country. But this inaugural ceremony signals more than a peaceful transition from one democratic administration to another. It is also a transition from one generation of Liberian leadership to a new generation. It is indeed a confirmation that democracy exists in Liberia, and that it is here to stay. We have arrived at this transition neither by violence nor by force of arms. Not a single life was lost in the process. Blood should never be the price tag for democracy. Rather, this transition was achieved by the free and democratic will of the Liberian people, guaranteed by the rule of law. This inaugural gathering also celebrates an important precedent that we Liberians can and will rely on established institutions and the rule of law to resolve our political agreements. This demonstrates the maturity of our institutions and that we as a people have learned valuable lessons from our brutal history. My fellow Liberians, let none the splendor of these ceremonies, none the celebration of electoral victory, make us forget how we arrived at this moment. We have arrived here on the blood, sweat, tears, and suffering of so many of our citizens, too many of whom died, longing for real freedom and equality.
All right, let's go back to Fidel and to all of you as well, because all of you following. That's why you're giving your points. Fidel, the foundation was laid. He acknowledged that yeah, the past administration laid the foundation. Of course, if we put it in a broader context, those foundations include even the roads you talk about, those developments that are going right now on the ground. Foundations were laid, but for other laymen, they won't understand actually. Where people are now saying, well, you know, it is our administration that came in, it is our administration that started it, you know, that what they're doing. It talks about the new generation. It is now being, is now in control, and he embracing the idea of a new generation taking over also, except that, you know, Kopani only as to how well this new generation is going to drive this nation, or even at the very beginning. Democracy is here to stay. He's promising us as well that, you know, he met democracy, and he's going to work hard to make sure that democracy stay. But how to maintain democracy, I think there where the problem is. It was flashback, electoral, you know, violence also even last year and this year as well. Whether, you know, we can maintain it for it to stay. There's a problem. The rule of law as well. He also talk about that he made the rule of law in place. To be honest, yes, like what you said, I mean, there was real law of law as well. But then if we flash back and even up to now, if you go in the house, There's the judiciary branch also, the lawmakers. They are loggerheads, and things are breaking loose, are making headways in terms of not going the right way. Are they maintaining the rule of law? They make in order, and then finally make a mature process. Now, when you take over a mature process, what do you need to do? Let's hear it from you.
I think first of all, I think there's one thing we just need to clarify there. I think what's happening in the national legislature, we can't hold the president to account for that. The legislature is the first branch of government, and it's a co-equal branch. The president shouldn't be overriding or superseding or influencing the national legislature in a democracy. So whatever things they're doing there, that's their own thing. We can't put that on President Weah because he shouldn't have that power. The legislature is the first branch of government, and they are a co-equal branch to the legislature, to the executive and the judiciary. So we just clarify that they're on their own. In terms of his government, look, I think generational change is something that we've seen. Some of the individuals that he's put in place, we don't believe are competent to be in those positions, but there are a lot of young people in the government. There are a lot of young people in key government positions as well. And I was listening to someone a few months ago sent me this video of the deputy chief of staff. It's a lady. And I don't know why they sent me in the video, because I listened to the video and I was impressed by her knowledge. I'm impressed by the things that she was saying. I don't know whether they sent it to me because she was speaking in Liberian English, but then the guy who was questioning her was speaking Liberian English. So you don't expect her to go and start speaking American English when first of all, she is a Liberian. Secondly, she was being questioned in Liberian English. So at the end of the day, it's like I go to Liberia, and depending on who I'm speaking to, I speak like I speak now, or I'll speak my Liberian English, and if the person who is asking the question speaks broken English, I will respond in broken English. Somebody can say, my man, where you going there? I say, well, I'm going there down the road. Then you're just going to confuse the person. So I don't know why they sent me the video. Sorry, I went somewhere I shouldn't have gone. I just needed to get that off my chest. But I think there is definitely generational change. I think there are a lot of young people in government. Unfortunately, there are not a lot of women. A report just came out that was sponsored by the USAID that highlights the gross negligence on the part of Liberians in terms of women in high office, the Senate, the Houses of Representatives. The House of Representatives. It's horrible. And in the executives, I think we got 2 out of 17 ministers who were women. Don't take that as complete facts. I downloaded a report yesterday. I just read snippets of it, and it's bad, and that's after the president went to the EU last year and said that, his government is supporting women. In fact, he's got women in high positions. In fact, he's got the first female deputy chief of staff, which is true, but then you don't have a lot of women in other top government positions. And I think that's one thing. Generational change, I think he's definitely done that. I think President Weah has appointed a lot of young people to key government positions. So for that, he is definitely getting a pass from me, because he said there was going to be generational change. We've seen generational change. Obviously, you still need to have some old heads around, so people like Ansu Soni or Wilson Tape, to kind of guide things sometimes. But a lot of the ministers in the government are young people. And I think on that front, he's definitely done really well. Most of them, like I said, or some of them are not competent. And that is in terms of the rule of law, Max. When you have a guy like Colonel Gregory Coleman as head of the Liberian National Police, and then you replace him with someone who is like a lapdog, it's going to lead to chaos, because what Colonel Coleman had in place, or Inspector Coleman, or Inspector General Coleman, I don't even know what they call it now in Liberia, but what he had in place was a well-drilled, a well-maintained, a well-marshaled police force, that understood You saw during the elections with all the rigmaroles that were going on, there were less reports of violence from the police, or incompetence from the police, inadequacy in terms of responding to violent situations. I was listening to some things on social media and then reading the news today and yesterday, I think, about the situation with Representative Yeke Koluba, and how apparently the police inspector general refused to answer his call. 9 times he rang him. There's no way the inspector general of police can tell me that he doesn't know the telephone number of the representative, and there is no way he can tell me that he was so busy on a Sunday afternoon that he couldn't answer his phone. You're the police director. When your phone rings, you're supposed to answer it, because you're policing the country. You are there to protect law and order. So if someone's ringing you, it's because maybe something's gone wrong. And if what we're reading in the press is how things have been handled, then that's not protecting the rule of law. Because apparently, look, the police are being used for personal vendettas against people. They're not there to protect ordinary people. There are a lot of crimes in the country, in other parts of the country. So it's in that regard, then no, they're not doing what he promised to do in terms of protecting. But it was going to be difficult, Max, for any president, I must say. Even though they're not doing well, it was going to be difficult for any president in terms of protecting the rule of law, because you have to understand that from 2003 up until 2016, the UNMIL had a full presence in Liberia. So you had international trained police and military officers maintaining the peace and protecting citizens. So it was going to be difficult for anyone coming in, taking over full responsibility of policing the state. And our police, with all due respect, I like the fact that we're now managing our own affairs. Most of the individuals in the police force are guys who were probably ex-combatants, people who are not fully trained and educated, people who don't understand civility, people who don't understand what it is to be a police officer. That your job is to de-escalate things, not go on the scene and start beating people. Your job is to go there and de-escalate. If the thing is hot, if the water hot, you're supposed to put cold water inside. You can't go there and then add more hot water on the people. No, that's not what. And in Liberia, the mentality of the police is, if you go somewhere there's noise, you cause more noise. And that's not how the police is supposed to function. In this place, Max, when there's a thing, like a kerfuffle going on and the police turn up, the first thing they do is separate the individuals, take one person to one side, take the other person to the other side, calm the situation down first and foremost. That's what civil police officers will do. Calm the situation down first and foremost. Then you start to ascertain what's gone wrong. But you can't come in, people rioting, and then you jump and start whooping people all around the place. And then what you expect? You expect people to throw stones, and you expect people to riot. In our country, look, Max, yes, people will say, oh, we've had 10 years of peace. We had UNMIL there, so that 10 years of peace, and now we had 10 years of peace. Now we're understanding whether we really have peace or not, because we're now having to manage our own peace. And a lot of these guys, and I think this is on the past government, were not rehabilitated well enough, were not given opportunities to take their minds off a quick way to earn a living. So, for example, these guys were not given skills. There were no programs to get them involved in jobs and working to earn a living. So these guys are still stuck in limbo. And whenever there is an opportunity to use violence to make a situation that they can get things out of, they take that opportunity, because these guys have not been fully rehabilitated. And that is on President Sirleaf and her government, not on President Weah. It's on President Sirleaf and her government, because these guys, a lot of the young people in Liberia were not fully rehabilitated. And every time there's a little spark, they will jump in and start. And I think this government hasn't done much to help the situation as well, because there's no programs. The president talked about when he was in Senegal last year, or he was starting this national program where there were going to be loans for pimping riders and zogos, zoglos or zoglos, whatever they call them, you know, for them to be able to petty trade. I've not seen that yet. Maybe the project started and they gave the money to the money changers. Then again, I don't know, but I've not seen anything. You know, there's no big announcement that the loan scheme has started for Zogoden to go get money from, or Pempen rather than to go get money from, like the president said he was going, which was a very brilliant idea. I remember listening to the speech in Senegal. I was sat there thinking, wow, that's good. You know, if that can really happen, you know, that would be very, very good, because then these guys can get involved in the economy. And then they don't think about violence. They don't think about crime, you know, and then people can be at peace. Because one of the reasons why the UK, for example, where you and I live, has the level of peace that it has is because the unemployment rate in this country is usually around 6, 8. It don't really go above 10%, you know, it's like 6, 8, and then come back down, you know. So at the end of the day, you've got 90-something% of the population who can work in work. Yes, the money they're making might not be a lot, but they can earn a living.
Yeah.
You know, they can put food on their table. They can take care of their kids. There's free school for their kids to go to. You know, there's student loan for them to go to university. So even though there are some guys in this country who are mega rich, the people at the bottom don't react or riot or protest too much, because at least they're eating. You know, now if you take it to Liberia, you have the mega rich, and then the people at the bottom can't even get food to eat. And that's why whenever there's an opportunity for riot, opportunity to go steal, opportunity to loot, people will take it, because they're not happy, because they're not participating in the system. And that is on the previous government and it's on this government, because the young people have to be engaged so that they can get, look, Max, I've written at least 2 articles telling this government, look, you need to invest in agriculture. Take these Zogo there, send them on the farm. Let them go drive the tractors that can grate the dirt. Let them, some of them tend to drive the trucks and bring the food to red light to sell. You know, let some of them become vets and take care of the animals. Train some of them to be whatever terminology you use for the ones that take care of the plants. But give these guys an up, and look, one of the biggest way is, at Max, in this country, agriculture is the biggest industry, like one of the biggest industries. So that farmers have to go to poor European countries and import workers to come and work on their farms, because there's so many jobs on the farms. So at the end of the day, we need to adopt. This president lived in Europe for so many years. I don't know whether he ever picked up magazine to read, whether he ever read a newspaper, because if you read newspaper and magazines and books like some of us do, you will see how important agriculture is, how much money can be gained from agriculture, how many jobs could be created from an agriculture project. Easy to do. Cut the representatives' their salary down to $1,000 a month. Take the $14,000 each every month and invest it in agriculture projects. Buy the yellow machines, buy the tractors, buy the fertilizers, buy the irrigation systems. Train these guys. Take some Zogo, say the 10 of you guys, I'm training you all to be managers. You guys will manage the farms. I'm training you to be a technician. You will be doing the electrical stuff. These other guys, you guys are tractor drivers. You guys are going to be involved in accounting. We will teach you basic bookkeeping. We're not giving you money. You just, when the person pay the money, they bring the receipt, you mark it down. Maxing bought 2 bags of red. That's all you're doing. End of the month, you get paid. And not only that, but Max, we're killing 2 birds. We're looking after the young people. At the same time, we're feeding ourselves. We still spend close to $200 million a year importing food into our country.
Yeah, and importing chicken feet and rice and things.
We import orange from Sierra Leone. I was told a couple of years ago we're importing orange from Sierra Leone. Pepper, we're importing from Sierra Leone. That's not my fact. Someone told me that. So if the person lied to me,
I heard that too. Pepper and bitter apples. Yeah, they're not coming from.
I was in Bombing County, and people were telling me we import pepper from Sierra Leone. I'm thinking, huh? You mean both then giving up pepper? You know, we can't grow our own pepper now. We gotta go to boat. The pepper from boat there. But those are things that we need to do, Max. And in terms of that, I think generational change, the president has done really well. Rule of law, there are a lot of things that contribute to rule of law. When people are working and people are participating, when people feel that they're benefiting from the system, they don't steal. They don't want to be, look, nobody won't fight war in the UK here because they look at the kind of things that they were damaged. They're like, no, I don't want to support my country like that. But
No
if
way.
the person don't have anything to lose, that's why these guys are easily coerced into becoming rebels because they don't have anything to lose. But if the guy have a job that pays him $300 a month, he's got a nice government built low income house that he's paying $50 a month towards. He's buying for the next 25 years. He will pay $50, $50 the house become his house. Do you think that guy won't go take on to fight war?
No way.
No way. You can count with your 1 million and say, my brother, I can eat. My children going to school. I got a house that I pay mortgage on. I ain't want anything. Carry your gun somewhere else. And even that guy will go lay a complaint to the government and say, oh, that Maxim Messi, I will go for a war.
Definitely. Yeah, they may want to recruit me.
Exactly. Yeah. And those are things that, this government is not. And no, one of the things he talked about, I don't know whether we've reached to that yet, but I'll let you play the speech. Let's see, because I think the thing will go past 11 to 9 where we're going. So,
okay. I mean, so long as you get it out, that's fine. Okay, welcome back. Let me take some of your comments.
We have to finish the speech.
Okay, great. We're going to do another 10 minutes right after this. Let me read some of your comments. Miata Takina say Josh Luther, self-interest, Weah and his bunch of criminals. I complete disgrace and shame to Mama Liberia, period. It's sad. Okay, let's go down. Wilson Jerry, Weah's loyalists and sentimental followers love Weah more than their country. President Weah is lying. Let's say, I just dropped. President Weah is lying and breaking the Constitution daily, and our lawmakers are saying nothing, but also giving excuses for him to do more. Let's go down a little bit. Okay. Nettie Sear Brunel, let's go back up there. Westside Fidel, thank you. Westside Fidel, thank you so much for that. Let's see. Gamo, you right? That is a brilliant idea. That's the time Fidel talking about the agricultural aspect, also how to get it. Tamba J. Kabase, damn right. Appreciating Fidel as well. Paul Smith, just in case you don't know, is botanic. Okay, I don't know what he's trying to say there. Fresh Shafa, take Liberia off Monrovia. Everybody wants to live in Monrovia. That's not easy thing to do because according to the latest survey, worldwide survey, by 2050, cities across the world will be overwhelmed by people moving into the urban area. So it's not going to be easy now to fight that. Gamayu, right, say he's talking about, okay, all right there. Let's leave that there. Okay, let's go to the speech. Thank you so much, all of you, for your contribution. We're going to do another 10 minutes. It's not that long, but once you do 10 minutes, just 10 more minutes.
Today, we must remember the hundreds of thousands who died and many more whose lives were up in there and families displaced because we lost the sight of the fact that we can only reach the highest state of equality and freedom by treating each other with love and respect, not tearing each other down. Today, taking this lesson to heart, we bring the dawn of the new Liberia, so that their death would not be in vain. I solemnly pledge today, with the help of all of you, my fellow citizens, to build a Liberia of equality, freedom, dignity, and respect for one another. Let us all stand for the moment of silence to remember those who died on our soil. These are our conflict and by our own hands. Let us never be so again. Thank you. Please be seated. Fellow citizens, ladies and gentlemen, on this day of inauguration, as we begin to build upon the foundation of this new Liberia, I, George Weah, the new president will first give thanks and praises to the Almighty God for the blessing He has bestowed upon our country. And I'll say, my people, thank you, Yah. Thank you, Yah, for entrusting me with the responsibility of leading the effort to build this new and better Liberia. It will be my task, my duty, and my honor to lead this nation from division to national unity and toward a future of hope and prosperity. I've here taken an oath before you, and therefore, and before the Almighty God, to uphold the Constitution and to pray to preside over this government and this country to the best of my ability. Rest assured, I will not let you down. And so, my fellow citizens, I want to acknowledge you that the foundation of the new Liberia must be reinforced by the seed of integrity. We need men and women, boys and girls, whose integrity provides the foundation of the trust that is required for Liberian society to benefit our people. My fellow citizens, ladies and gentlemen, during my tenure as president of Liberia, the loudest battle cry that must ring from the mountain of Wologisi to the peak of Yekepa, from the ranges of Putu to the hills of Bombi, and from the coast of Hapa to the shores of Morovia, must be the cry for national unity. We should strive to put aside our differences and join hands in the task of our nation building. We must learn how to celebrate our diversity without drawing lines of division in our new Liberia. We belong to Liberia first, before we belong to our inherited tribes or chosen counties. We must not allow political loyalties prevent us from collaborating in the national interest. We must respect each other and act as neighbors, regardless of religious, social, and economic differences. In the words of our national anthem, a union strong, success assured. We cannot fail. United, we are certain to succeed as a nation. Divided, we are certain to fail.
All right. Let's deal with the aspect again. Maybe bit by bit. President spoke quite frankly, and to be honest with you, Fidel, this speech, I've been listening to it, not on the day itself, but I've been listening to it since after. The wordings were, carefully chosen, and he read the speech very eloquently as well. Okay, I mean, he has just President acknowledged that indeed we've lost sight of the true meaning of love. Of course, that's you touched on some of those things, because if you actually love your neighbor, probably even if you come from work and you got your dark windows or so, you want to know who is living next door to your fence or so. But love, perhaps the way we define it is quite different. But he acknowledging that perhaps it's time to change. Also pledge to build equality and freedom. This is what you touched on earlier as well. But I don't know whether we can also match that with what he said, pledging that day and 12 months down the line, whether indeed we're seeing he also said that he promised us that day he's going to lead with dignity. Now, leading with dignity, I don't know whether the word is chosen, or whether somebody actually studied well to know as well, because what we're seeing now, the euphoria we see surrounding the ministers, like we're just talking about, we're still talking about the 16 billion, the 25 million, we're talking about other stuff as well. Dignity all ties in also, but then I mean, the president said, I will lead. Reinforced integrity as well. He's talking about that. Yes, yes, probably trying to agree that there was a problem with integrity in the past administration. But then I will actually, my coming in now is to reinforce all devices that actually question integrity. But then if we track back and try to match the words with what has happened, what is still going on. So we also like to hear from you on that. And then national unity, and of course, and then asking us to put the country first above party. I don't know whether those are actually matching well as well. What are your takes?
I think the president failed miserably on that last point in terms of putting the nation above party loyalties. Because the first thing was that immediately after they took office, Vice President Joe Taylor in Bond County was threatening. She went to I think install into office some new chiefs that had been elected, and she was threatening chiefs, saying that look, now the CDC is in power. So, you need to fall in line. If you don't join the CDC, if you're not for us, you are against us. We're kind of suggesting that people had to join the CDC if they wanted to keep their jobs. When the media reported on it, she tried to walk that back and say, oh, no, that's not what I meant. But everybody knows that's exactly what you meant. And that's not, the thing is, not only that, but one of the things I must give credit to President Weah for was when he was in opposition. He and his staunch loyalists were very much in opposition. These guys did not cross over. Obviously, some of them did, but most of them did not cross over. So you have to give them credit for that. They did not have a message to sell to the Liberian people, and we saw that during the election campaigns. He ran away from all of the debates. Whenever there was a presidential debate, he wouldn't attend. So there was never a message. The only thing he's a populist presidential candidate. He's a popular guy. People voted for the popular George Weah. They're not for the policies or anything like that. So sometimes it's difficult to actually judge him on his policies because he didn't offer anything to us. All of the other guys turned up, gave a policy statement that the Liberian people could judge them on. George Weah never gave the one. He won the elections anyway. Having said that, he talked about national unity. I don't believe that he's reached across the aisle. He tried his phony meeting once just before he went to the UN General Assembly, where he called a few opposition party members together in a hastily prepared meeting, tried to say, oh, I want to work with the opposition. It has to be a holistic process. If you really want to work with the opposition, you have to meet with them on a regular basis. When you have policy options that you want to put forth as a national policy that needs to be adapted by the government, you call these guys. Do you have any experts in this field? Can they advise us on the best way to write this policy so that all Liberians can benefit? You don't call people for a 2-hour meeting before you're about to leave for the UN General Assembly so that the world can see as, oh, this Just Weah guy is a man of inclusion. He's having conversations with the opposition. So on that front, he's failed. He's not been a unifier. His party has been very violent in terms of how they responded to criticism. Obviously we've seen on here as well. The comments that come from seditions when they put, because everyone hates them. Even though we're all Liberians, even though if Liberia develops, we'll all benefit from it, but we hate them because they're in power. So that's their mentality. They have this victim mentality. It was good. It was acceptable when they were in the opposition, but you can't be in government and have the same victim mentality. You have the power of the government purse. You're supposed to be developing the country, doing well for all Liberians. So at the end of the day, he's still on that front as well. He's not, there are a lot of political leaders. I remember listening to Her Excellency, the former president, Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, recently, and she was saying that, look, George Weah has never reached out to me to ask questions. Now, this woman is a Harvard educated, World Bank schooled, a United Nations experienced individual. Now, if you wouldn't call on anyone else, this is the woman who oversaw an economy that grew regularly in the first 6 years of her administration. It was only after Ebola. It's the Ebola that kind of slowed our economic growth down, like so dramatically that we really struggled to bounce back from it. She's overseen a country that economically grew year on year, brought in $19 billion worth of investment. Okay, we've not seen all that investment because obviously it's all promised investment, but she was able to get $4 billion worth of debt waived. So if you're wanting to run a government of national unity and you need people to give you advice, you will not go to Ellen and say, oh my, I need help. Oh, the economy here ain't working. How can we get it up and running? Would you not call people like Vice President Joseph Boakai, who has many years of experience? People like Benoni Ure. People might love him, people might hate Benoni, but Benoni Ure has ran a Lone Star Cell company since 2001. A multi-million-dollar company in Liberia, very successful. Wouldn't you call someone like that? Wouldn't you call Alex Cummings of the ANC, a guy who ran Coca-Cola Africa for years, earned millions of dollars from it? Wouldn't you call someone like that to say, look, how can we get this economy working? What policies would you guys suggest? Look, Max, at the end of the day, when this country succeeds in the next 6 years, George Weah will take the credit because he is the president. It doesn't matter who he gets his advice from, he will take the credit. Indeed. So calling someone to a meeting and asking them for their advice or for their help doesn't diminish the fact that you will take the ultimate credit. You are the president. It happened on your watch. So you will be the ones people will say, during George Weah time, this thing happened.
Well,
so why don't you reach out to these individuals?
The fear of Morab, isn't it? That is because
he's afraid that when he reach out to these guys, that's my opinion anyway. I might be wrong. He's afraid that if he reach out to these guys, it will get out in the public. His base might not like the fact that he's talking to them, and he believes that people will undermine his success to say, "Oh, then now you do it. That Cummings idea you use." But at the end of the day, you are elected to do what is good for the country. So if it means going to your opposition, your political opposition, not life opposition, but your political opposition, and say, look, how can you've got an idea of running things? How can we run this country so that we can get the ordinary people into jobs? That's for the good of, that's what you took the oath of office for, to protect and defend. And now you have to do it and you're not willing to do it because you're afraid that people will say, oh, you listen to Cummings or you listen to Benoni Ure. But these guys are educated and experienced. These guys have ran businesses. Whether you like it or not, they've got the experience of doing the job. So get them in, ask them the tough questions, take their advice, and take this poor guy from passing around here telling us that he took our money and gave it to money changers.
You know, I mean, that's a difficult situation actually to put Mr. Weah because and the rest of the guys, because when they came in, they came up with a slogan, this is our time. This is our time. So, all right, guys, thank you so much. Let's see whether we can take some of your comments. Then before we do another 5 minutes of the speech, we're here for some time. This is a rare time for it, actually. And we thank God we have a political analyst, Fidel, here, who is helping us to analyze this speech as well. The basic. Okay, let's start off. Okay. Let's see. Nettie Brunel says, speaking on being self-sufficient is an excellent idea and must not be underestimated or underrated. But I believe the catalyst to our problem is our educational system. In order for our country to survive the next decade, the government has no interest relentlessly in primary education. We lack the basic. I agree with you, brother. Especially for me, that my interest there, the primary education area. Gamma, you right say he went against everything. Okay, that's the time we're talking about all of those points that he may mention in the speech. Nettie Brunel is back. He say speaking on self-sufficiency is very important and cannot be taken lightly. But I believe that the catalyst, I think, is the same. It's the same message. He just repeated. Amos George. The speech was well written and well delivered, but his actions has met expectations. The government engulfed with corruption and nepotism. He is dividing the country. Anthony Gay, President Obama reached to President Bush for the third in his early days of his presidency. I mean, just trying to agree with what Fidel was saying. It's not a bad idea for you to be in and go to your opposition to get some, help. So let's continue with the speech. Yeah.
Fellow citizens, ladies and gentlemen, it is my belief that the most effective way to directly impact the poor and to narrow the gap between the rich and poor is to ensure that public resources do not end up in the pocket of government officials. I fully believe that the overwhelming mandate that I received from the Liberian people is a mandate to end corruption in public service. I promise to deliver on this mandate. As officials of government, it is time to put the interests of our people above our own selfish interests. It is time to be honest with our people. Though corruption is a habit among our people, we must end it. We must pay civil servants living wage so that corruption is not an excuse for taking what is not theirs. For those who do not refrain from enriching themselves at the expense of the people, the law will take its course. I say today that you will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. To the private sector, I say to you, Liberia is open for business. We want to be known as a business-friendly government. We will do all that is within our power to provide an environment that will become conducive for the conduct of honest and transparent business. We will remove unnecessary regulatory constraints that tend to impede the establishment and operation of business in a profitable and predictable manner. As we open our doors to all foreign direct investment, we will not permit Liberian-owned businesses to be marginalized. As we open our doors to all foreign direct investment, we will not permit Liberian-owned businesses to be marginalized. We cannot remain spectators in our own economy. My government will prioritize the interests of Liberian-owned businesses and offer programs to help them become more competitive and offer services that international investors seek as partners. My fellow Liberians, this victory would not have been possible without the support of the youth of this country, the women of this country, especially those who make their living by selling in the markets. To all of you, I want to say a heartfelt thank you. This is your government. In the famous words of President Abraham Lincoln of the United States of America, the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. We could not have arrived at this day without our voices being heard loudly, and all our views, no matter how critical, being freely expressed in an atmosphere void of intimidation and arrest. This was only made possible by the tolerance of my predecessor, of Excellency Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, who protected the rights of freedom of speech as enshrined in our Constitution. Now, in my turn.
All right, let's hold you there. In your turn, let's hold you there. Fidel, this is another very, very brilliant part of the speech, actually, as far as the reading of and the projection of the wordings are concerns. Let's start off with the resources. Resources to be protected. He said that, you know, gone are those days. I noticed that, you know, our resources were not protected, but might come into being now. You know, we will end it. And corruption as well, because we all saw it those days. We all were on the same bandwagon and checking and balancing the UP-led government by Ellen Johnson Sirleaf every day about corruption as well. In fact, he used to be even on newspapers. You know, he attacking the government and calling the government is too corrupt as well. Okay, honest with our people. He also said, this government is going to be very honest with our people, and we're going to be. That means we'll be open, transparent. Anything we're doing, we'll let you know. You'll get involved. Law will deal with corrupt officials as well. And I mean, during Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf's time, I mean, they were crying on Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. Why are you sending people to jail? All the people stealing our money, and you know, even when we catch them, we just let them go. We don't punish them or so. International relationship as well. I mean, that was another good aspect in terms of encouraging the people to say, well, look, my government going to be, you know, a government that will open doors to you guys, and you guys will come in and will be able to put things together, and then remove obstacles to build, you know, businesses. And I think one of those obstacles to me, quite frankly, maybe would have been to start from the Freeport of Monrovia. But I can tell you, even day before yesterday, Fidel, a friend sent me a whole list of containers from 2011 that are staying stuck at the Freeport of Monrovia. I'm not even talking about 2018, 2017 or so. They're there. I saw the huge part of this. I mean, what are the obstacles? Have you moved from there to at least encourage your librarian, your own librarian people as well? No more backseat in the business for librarians. Tying in with this Freeport business APM, you know, coming in where, you know, every barrel, every suitcase now it has to be open, you know, and checking. I don't know whether these obstacles are actually matching with the reality on the ground. Where are you?
Well, I think let me start from the gaps between rich and poor. You said he was going to try and reduce the gap between rich and poor by making sure that resources are used for the people, and that the government money would not end up in the pockets of government officials. The thing is, I like to read a lot into things. I overanalyze things sometimes, and there was a huge pause after the president said that. So he paused for about 10 seconds before he went on to give the speech. Now, in my head, I'm thinking, they probably thinking to say, they want to say, I say I can do it, you know, because he was planning to come and put some money in his pocket. So how can I then be saying that, oh, I will make sure money, because it's like you say something and then you catch yourself and like, they wanted Menenso to write in the speech. But that's just me being over analytical. But look, we know that is not true. because we can see what's happening in terms of how government money is being managed. Officials are riding expensive planes, not planes, but taking the most expensive seats on the plane at the detriment of the Liberian people, taking their family members with them. He talked about not serving their selfish interest, but the interest of the Liberian people. Well, that's not serving the interest of the Liberian people. When you go on government business trip, I go on business trips for my university. I travel, around the world. I go to places like Canada, and I don't take my girlfriend or my wife now. Back then, she was my girlfriend. I don't take her with me when we're going. Or I don't say, oh, let me take my daughter with me to Oslo because I'm going on a university trip, pay for babysitter. And no, because the university will not pay for that. That's wasting. If I want to take my daughter with me, that's fine. You pay for your daughter yourself. The university is not going to pay for me to take my family with me. They only pay for me to go and do the work that they send me to do. When I'm done, I get on the plane and come back. So, that for me is not working. So in terms of that, I'm not going to give him a pass. I think he's not really done much on corruption. If anything, they've exacerbated corruption. It's so blatant that the ordinary people, I think, I don't even know how they're going to deal with that. The next thing he talked about was paying civil servants a living wage to kind of bring down corruption. And again, I wrote, I think it was back in June or May last year, I wrote a piece and I talked about this because the thing that really gets to me is this recurring expenditure of the Liberian government. The fact that we're paying people so much money in a country that is poor. It's a poor country, you pay people poor money. When they say poor, you're supposed to be paying people money that poor people should be making. If you can't earn 1,000, look, Max, if you tell a minister of government, we'll pay you $2,000. If you want it, go. We'll find somebody else who will take the 2G and do the job. Yes, we might have to train them on the job, but at least we'll save money that we can invest in other places. Then you can trickle that money down, pay people at the bottom level higher wages so that then they don't steal. He's not done that. There's not been any increase in the wages of the people at the bottom of the list. So again, he's not achieved that. That don't match with his speech. He talked about being a country open to business. Now, from what we've seen, not a lot of businesses want to go to Liberia. They've signed 2 loan agreements to come and do constructions in Liberia. We've not seen those come off the ground. Recently, there were some housing projects signed. We saw what happened at the NHA. The guy tried to be corrupt and whatever it is. Now he's facing trial or whatever that is. Just a couple of days ago, I was reading that Sam Dabi, one of the biggest investors in Liberia, is leaving or is threatening to leave Liberia because the environment is not conducive to business. I was in Liberia recently, and I'm not going to name names, but there's a couple of Indian businessmen that I know personally, and I went to visit one of them at the office, and we're having a chat. It's like, look, the government of Liberia owe us so much money, and they cannot pay our money. Doing business in the country is becoming difficult. Now, these are guys who have been in our country for many, many, many years. These are guys who are the backbone of our country and our economy. Yes, we want to get Liberia into the economy, and I'm all for that. But these guys are the ones running things at the moment. You can't be crediting people goods and not paying them as a government. And, and what you expect other businesses to come in so you can credit their goods as well? So businesses are not going to Liberia. So they've not done enough to attract businesses to Liberia as well. And then you talked about, obviously, the National Port Authority is also a part of that. You talked about bringing Liberians to the fold. Now, I've not seen one law passed to say, contracts must be awarded to a Liberian business first. And in the instance where we don't have a Liberian business with the expertise, then you can award it to a foreign business. I've not seen anything like that in the law. Other countries have it. In the UK, for example, if clubs in the Premier League want to buy a player from overseas, they have to prove that they don't have an English player or a British player with similar qualities to that player before that person will be given a work permit to come into this country to work. So you can't just go buy any kind of player from around the corner. You have to prove to the Home Office that this player will not only improve your team significantly, but based on what you have in terms of the access to locally based players, there's no one of that quality. So you have to go. Similarly with big businesses in this country, to get a visa for a foreign employee to come to this country. You must offer the job. I was just speaking to one of my colleagues on my project who's just got a new job, and they were telling me that, look, they had to offer the job to British people. When they couldn't find any British person qualified to get that job, that's when they offer it for me to be able to apply for it. So when I went to apply the first time, they told me, no, you're not British. You have to wait. We have to find someone who is British first. If there's no one of this level of qualification, then we can consider you. So if other countries are doing it, why can't, if you want Liberian businesses to develop, they have to get contracts. For Liberian business to get contract, you have to be deliberate. You have to put in laws that demand that you offer contracts of a certain amount of money to Liberian businesses first. When we don't have the expertise, then you take it outside of the outside of Liberian, but that's not in place. So again, on that front, I believe the president, the stories that we're hearing that his private properties have been built by Lebanese businessmen, not Liberian contractors. So if you are saying that I want to help Liberian businesses, say you're spending your own money to fix your house, give it to a Liberian contractor. So you don't trust Liberian contractors to build your house. So how are you going to encourage them to be involved in the economy? So again, as president, you have to do these things. And you also talked about this one. I was really, really glad because I read the speech on Saturday morning, actually. And I've got it in front of me now, just making reference as he's speaking. And I don't believe that he gave the speech eloquently because this is the written speech. He missed a lot of the words when he's talking.
Well,
obviously, because you don't see the written speech, you don't know, but when he's talking, he's missing a lot of the words. He's jumping over them like helter skelter here. So for me, it wasn't eloquently, but you don't expect that from him. This is not someone who's an eloquent.
He told us he want us.
Exactly. Later on in his speech, he said, look, if you want eloquence, then I'm not your guy. So I don't judge him on his eloquence. But he wasn't as eloquent in his speech. But anyway, the point I want to make is almost the last one, where he said that we didn't arrive here without getting our voices here. So he was trying to say that, look, under President Sirleaf, we're allowed to shout, we're allowed to scream. Nobody intimidated us, nobody arrested us. Now, I don't know about you, Max, but that sounds to me that the president was admitting, not just to Liberians, but to the world, that it was peaceful under President Sirleaf. There was freedom under President Sirleaf. So when Moluba Molu comes up and say, well, during Ellen Johnson's early time, the country wasn't safe. That's why the president not building house. But the president said in his speech that during her time, it was safe. Nobody arrested them when they were shouting. Nobody intimidated them. So it was safe. So how come you are telling us it wasn't safe when the president is telling? So who's telling the truth? So the president telling me it was very, very safe during Ellen time, but he didn't build his houses then. You are telling me now it's safe. Then it wasn't safe, but then the president said, you understand why I'm confused here, Max? The president said to the world, it was very, very safe. He said here, this was only made possible by the tolerance of my predecessor, Her Excellency Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, who protected the right to freedom of speech as enshrined in our Constitution. Yeah? Before that, he said, being freely expressed in an atmosphere void of intimidation and arrest. So it's a free society. The president said the place was free and fair and easy, it was secure. But I didn't build my houses. I said now it's safe. So that means the president lied to the world in his speech when he said that during Ellen time was safe. So all Moluba Molu lying to us that the president only building a house. I like that part. When I read it on Saturday, I laughed because I'm like, this is like a Donald Trump moment, where, Donald say something, and then, what you call her, Sarah Huckabee Sanders come out and say something, and then Donald go and say something totally different. You're like, oh, so who do we believe? And, so for me, I believe the president because this is a written speech given by the leader of the country. He is saying that, look, Ellen time was safe. So what Moluba Molu is suggesting, that the president is building his houses now because now is safer, that doesn't hold water. And that is something that he needs to take back. He obviously didn't listen to the president's speech. The president need to call him in office and discipline him because your boss man can't be speaking and you're listening to his speech. Because if you go and tell the boss man he's lying, I mean, you listen to his speech.
Undermine the boss.
Exactly. You can't undermine your boss.
No. It's supposed to match for him. All right, guys, we stay here on the Profile Liberia. We've got 10 minutes to go according to the speech. Of course, let's see whether we can quickly squeeze in the time. Thank you so much for your contribution. We're going to do an additional couple of minutes and then come and read your comments, and then we'll wrap up. But let's hear from the president. Today or yesterday, officially was the day that President George Weah took over, and it was on the 22nd. Of January 2018. So this year marks it 1 year. So anniversary was yesterday, and the rest of the month is of course regarded as the anniversary period. So we are here analyzing his speech and matching it with the reality on the ground. And my guest analyst, political analyst, is Mr. Fidel Budi. Of course, by next year, hopefully by maybe before the end of this year, the mystalization will be replaced by something else. But I'm not going to tell you yet. I'll tell you later on. But until then, let's continue with the speech.
I will go further to encourage and reinforce not only freedom of speech, but also freedom of political assembly. Ladies and gentlemen, to change the structure of Liberian economy will require huge investment in agriculture, infrastructure, in human capital, and in technology. We hope our international development partners will assist us in this transformation. Meanwhile, on behalf of all Liberians, I would like to thank the international community for the invaluable contributions they have made to our peace and economic development. I thank the economic community of the West African states, the ECOWAS, for standing with Liberia throughout these years. Many of our West African brothers and sisters shed their blood for Liberians during our conflict. This is a debt Liberians will never be able to repay. We count these fallen West African soldiers among the martyrs of our history. Without their suffering sacrifices, this day would not have been possible. ECOWAS will continue to play a very meaningful role during my presidency. I also thank the United Nations for the important role it has played in Liberia. We stood with the United Nations at its founding, but it was just an idea driven by ideas. Then in our darkest day, the UN stood with us. The UN peacekeeping mission has ensured unbroken peace within our borders for more than a decade, and will soon demonstrate their confidence in us by transitionally attached for peacekeeping program of the UN organization, which will continue in key sectors such as education, health, and agriculture. Ending the peacekeeping mission successfully is something which all Liberians and the partners should take great pride. We thank all members countries of the United Nations for your support, and I promise to continue to build on the success that we have achieved together. To the government and people of the United States of America, we thank you for your strong support over the years. The Republic of Liberia has a strong historic relationship with the United States of America, which has manifested itself, and that relationship will even be stronger under my administration. To the European Union, I say thank you for your strong partnership with Liberia. European aid has provided critical support for Liberia's recovery from war, and this continues of all Liberians. The Samuel Cannon Sports Complex to the people of the Republic of China, I say to you, Sheshe.
All right, I think the rest of the 6 minutes actually is of acknowledgement and commendation as well, which is quite vital as well. We appreciate that. But let me pick on some of the and some of the issues there, and of course you can add on as usual, wherein we can match them up with what he said and what is being of reality on the ground. You're talking about freedom of a political assembly, that of course which of course is quite important. But then if we talk about the reality on the ground, whether what happened in district number 10, what happened in district 13, whether that can tie into it to say, well, yeah, we are enjoying freedom of political assembly also. I admitted that to revamp the economy as well, and he said that he said that you're going to be a challenge thing anyway, but given the information you just shared with us, there was a point in time before even you took over. Apparently the economy was okay. I don't know. I don't know whether we can match between that time they took over to now, backtracking to say, well, yes, you made the challenge, and the challenge was there, and it is getting better or it's getting worse. I don't know. On me as well, reinforce that of course reinforce the earlier statement when we're talking about the issue of security, and the president, where you brought about the chairman of the party saying one thing and he's saying another thing. But if you commenting on me as well, I don't know. So it's almost like somebody is contradicting themselves, or the other way around. And national security, which of course we force on national security. Yes, before I came in, the issue of national security was brilliant or so, and but here we are. It's still okay, and I'm going to build on it or whatever. But then national security as well can also tie in with what happened, a couple of days ago when police were, brutally handling their own brothers and sisters, which we, I don't know whether that can be put under the microscope to say, well, look, you guys need to go back on the drawing table and check yourself and come back. What's your take?
I think it's obviously when you talk about, the president talk about political assembly, we know right now, we know that what previous leaders have done in Liberia, authoritarian leaders in Liberia, what they've done is muscled political dissent coming from the University of Liberia. President Tolbert tried to do it. President Doe tried to do it. President Taylor tried to do it. I'm not sure if President Sirleaf did it, but then we know now this president has done it as well. The University of Liberia has always been a bedrock of breeding new political heavyweights. Guys like Gafuan and Tuer and all those guys went through the walls of the University of Liberia. Dr. Sawyer, Ambassador Johnson, and these are guys who went to the university and they came out, and that is important. Allowing political assembly at the University of Liberia is important to the sustenance of our democracy, because students go there to mold their minds. They go there when you and I go to university. I remember when I walked through the walls of my university here in the UK to do my undergraduate degree, one of the first things they told us is like, look, here is where you start to form your view of the world. This is how you're going to start molding your view. This is how I see the world. Am I a liberal? Am I a conservative? Do I think that rich people should pay more? Do I think people should be treated this way? So that's when these young people are starting to form their view of Liberia and the world. And for you to start to muscle that, it's not good for the country, because you are denying the next generation from having leaders who's developed through a well thought out process of engaging with other colleagues and learning from one another. And I personally think that undermines that particular part of the speech where he says you allow people, because the University of Liberia has always been a bedrock for political activism, and we should always allow it to be, as long as it doesn't get violent, as long as it doesn't call for things like violence against the government or against people of Liberia. It should be allowed to, if I was a leader in Liberia, I'll actually go there and engage with these guys, because they might come up with some ideas out of the box that might be very good for the country. Because these guys are learning, they're reading, they're developing new ideas, and it's always good to tap into those new ideas. And look, I don't think it's right. I think the president's undermined his own speech by going against that protection of the assembly, and I think it's important that he goes back and allow that to happen. I think the other thing in the speech I really want to just highlight as well is the fact that he made a point to honor our West African brothers who shed their blood in Liberia during the war, to help bring peace to our country as we see it. We should never forget them, and I think it was very crucial that he did that. And remember that our brothers in the sub-region came there and stood with us in a time when others wouldn't put their lives on the line, and that we must always carry with us as Liberians. And I think finally, look, the president talked about agriculture as being one of the things that could help change the structure of our economy. And I've just had a rant about how we should be investing in agriculture, how we can empower our young people and feed the country as well. We talked about infrastructure. We know he's been trying to get loans to build roads, and those loans haven't been coming to fruition, and as a result, we're stuck in a rut. And I think he also talked about human capacity, human capital in terms of developing our brains. Look, President Sirleaf, one of the things that she did very well was she saw, she made sure that a lot of young Liberians went overseas, got education, came back and contributed to the society. A lot of the people I know in Liberia, young Liberians, were scholars under President Sirleaf. I have not seen that yet with this government. I've not seen Liberians going on government scholarships overseas. And that is a worrying trend, because you would think, and I think when Netisie is actually my older cousin, and what the point that he was making, that we need to empower our people, not academically, academically, but the education of people is very important, not at the primary level, but then throughout. And I think this president hasn't really done that. He's gone to attack the problem from the top, and what Netisie was trying to say is you need to attack the problem from the bottom. You educate, you set the foundation. It's like you and I, Max, were able to do the things we're doing. We were able to come to this country and not struggle to fit into the education system, because we had that basis. The basic education that we had before the war and before things got as corrupt as things are now made it possible for you and I. I remember when I came to the UK, it's just a quick story, and I came, and then we went to register at university, and they said, oh, you have to take an English and math test. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I did the test, I aced the test, and then they're like, okay, we won't put you in this group with the other Africans, we'll put you in the group with the rest of the students. And obviously, I don't think people should be treated that way, but at the end of the day, because of the basic education, that basis that was set when we were young kids in kindergarten and in first grade, second grade, third grade, our reading capacity, our ability to comprehend, to do English and maths, it helped us that when we came into these countries, we could compete with the students who were already here. Right now, Liberian students cannot compete with students internationally, and that is a problem. And the president talked about human capital. He's doing it the wrong way. If you can't send people overseas to go and get masters and doctorate degrees, fix the primary education in our country, so that when the kid go to school and learn, when he comes out and travel to another country, he has a strong basis that he can compete with other students internationally. When you say that reading test, he can read. You say that writing, you write.
Yeah.
A lot of our graduates with master's degrees and whatever they come out with these days from the University of Liberia, some of them can't even write simple letter.
No.
Memos, they can't write memo. You tell them to write a memo, they ask you what is a memo. And this person got a master's degree, in from and that's very shameful. And they can't go out. And that's one of the reasons why other countries in the sub-region tap into their diaspora community a lot more than we do in Liberia.
Yeah.
Because the guys we have on the ground are so inadequate in their educational standards that they are afraid that if they bring someone like Max, who is educated overseas, he will come and show them out. You show to the world that they're useless and they don't know what they're doing, and they might lose their job. So they wouldn't encourage diaspora Liberians coming home to contribute. You go to Nigeria, diaspora Nigerians go home all the time to contribute. They encourage them to come home. Encourage them. The education system in Nigeria, my brother, when I worked at the University of Sheffield, we were collaborating with the University of Ibadan because their ethics procedure was exactly the same as ours. What they were doing as outputs were exactly the same as ours. I was in Nigeria in 2017. My university here is collaborating with the University of Ibadan. We went there, we held a joint conference together because they have similar standards to ours. So it's easy for you. So those kind of people that are afraid to say, oh yeah, come and join us, let's work, because they know their stuff. If you go there and try to tell him he don't know, he will show you that he knows. Our people don't know. So because of that, they sabotage diaspora Liberians from coming home and contributing because they're so afraid that people will come and take their jobs because they're so inadequate. It's a very harsh and unwanted criticism, but it is the fact. And I think the president has failed in that regard because he's not really developed the human capital and technology. Well, they're laying the, I don't know when we were there recently, they were digging the roads because they're laying the fiber optic lines. Let's see what happens once that's done.
What happens with that? Yeah, in the next maybe 2 years or so. But Fidel, before we take leave of you, we let's see whether I welcome our brother from Zambia. Welcome, Victor. Listen to this, and let's see whether we can relate it to Liberia. Although Liberia was mentioned, though.
They would not go to Kenyatta Hospital, they would run to the United Kingdom. Tragedy, no hygiene in our politics because Africans had started engaging in theft. In fact, I used to say that African politicians were thieves. Then I went to Uganda and I was told that they are not thieves, they are looters. And when I went to Liberia last week, I was told they are not looters. I was told they are looters on an industrial scale. That is the logical metamorphosis of the African politician whose appetite for public wealth is completely insatiable.
Fidel, I mean, we're making history now.
I like the enthusiasm in the guy's voice when he's talking, and it's just it's hilarious and entertaining. Look, Max, let me just give you a history lesson again, and it's I love the country and I love our country history, and I do encourage all Liberians to engage with our history. We have a system of government that was initiated by our forefathers. We say forefathers quotation because there were people on the land when they came, but our forefathers initiated a system of governance to where everybody worked in government. When the Liberian College was first founded in, I think, 1870, the University of Liberia was Liberia College at the time, they only taught politics, law, and economics, I think, because everybody who was studying to go into government to work. And because the government has become the biggest employer in Liberia, that means everyone goes into government with one mentality and one mentality only. Now, when Tottenham became president in 1944, he was the one that exacerbated the exploitation of government resources for personal gains. And From then on, it has become the norm in Liberian politics that you go into government to get rich. And that's what I said to you, and I was thinking about it on the train today. If we reduce the salaries of government officials in the legislature from 10,000 or 15,000 to 1,000, 80% of the people in the national legislature now will resign because they wouldn't want to serve their own people for that kind of money. And that tells you exactly what is going on in Liberia. The guy said we are looters on an industrial scale. I'm sure there should be a word, a phrase or a concept higher than that, because what we're doing in Liberia is so heinous, Max, that sometimes when I think about it, I get angry. But then you can't get violent. You just get angry. You get so angry sometimes, and look. I do not know how. I was talking to a colleague of mine last night in the States, and we were having conversations about Liberia. And I said, look, the honest truth is, I do not know where do you start to tackle the problem? Because it's almost like when you try to treat cancer, for example, Max, they say, oh, the cancer is it says cancer of the breast, for example. You say, okay, let's take the breast out. Yeah, you take the breast out. But this cancer is cancer of the whole body. So where do you go to take the cancer out? The cancer is everywhere. So you can't chop the whole body up. You kill the person. So how do you get rid of the cancer? It's something that I've never, up until now, I've never come to a position where I think I have an understanding of how to deal with corruption in Liberia. And until we can get there, we're in a difficult situation. It's horrible. I feel sorry for the ordinary people because, like I always say on the show, Max, you and I, it's not being disrespectful to the Liberian people, but you and I will always have a place in the world. And that's why I was talking about Twitter, like he needs to think about his own reputation. I don't have a big reputation, but I know that I can get a job that's going to be comfortable, that I can influence people and influence society for the rest of my life because I've developed myself, I've added value to myself. My skills are wanted in the working industry. If people don't want to employ me, I can start my own business and they will employ my services. But for the masses of our people, they don't have that opportunity. And the thing is, we're only 4-something million, Max. We're not even 7 million like Sierra Leone is doing way better than us. We're not, like 20 million like Ghana or other places like that, doing way better. And you're thinking 4.5 million. I was looking at the map of Liberia the other day because I've got this presentation tomorrow on my project. And Liberia is green. When you look at Liberia on Google Map in West Africa, there's so much forest. 40% of the forest of West Africa is in Liberia alone. 40, just think about that as Liberians. 40% of the forest of the entire Liberia could sell carbon credits and survive as a country. Just come in, like all these big countries that pumping a lot of greenhouse gases, they need to be able to pay smaller countries to not cut their trees down. Liberia could sell carbon credits and we could probably raise enough money for our country to develop at a good and decent pace if only our officials will be honest and do their best for the people.
Just before we let you go, Fidel, you were in Liberia recently, where you did a presentation. Share a little bit with us. What was the presentation about? What is it? Was it for the benefit of Liberia or for the benefit of the rest of Africa?
Well, I've over the last 3 years I've been doing research in Liberia with funding from the European Research Council. So I've been looking at the impact of land grabbing in terms of how people in Senja district in Bomi County were experiencing land grabbing. Land grabbing is a term used to describe large-scale land deals where a big company comes in, take a lot of land, displace people off the land, and use the land to plant like palm oil or rubber or something like that. And I've been looking at a particular district in Liberia to see how that has been an impact on the community. And what I found is that not only does land grabbing threaten livelihoods of people, but it makes things difficult for some members of the. So for women, for example, they have to go like further into the forest to find land to grow food on, putting themselves at risk of being raped, being attacked. We also talked about power relations, in terms of how these people are not consulted when these companies come in most of the time, and they're then displaced off their land, and how that impacts on them. And then we talked about the identity of the land as well. So you've got like forested area, like I was just talking about, and then the forest is being cleared. People use the forest for bush meat. They use the forest for coal, for wood, for other things. Like traditional schools like the Poro and Sani societies. But then those forests are now disappearing. You've got big palm farms taking over, and the landscape is changing. So obviously it affects the land, it affects the production of crops, and it affects water resources. But then also these companies are not living up to their corporate responsibility. So they promise a lot of things that they're not giving to these communities, and nobody is holding them to account. But then the interesting thing that I found as well is where when you read a lot of books about these things, they talk about these communities being very passive, that they don't do anything, they just sit there and allow these things to happen. That's not the case in Senja. People are reacting. So Senja residents collaborated with residents from Kpakio County, and then they complained to this to the Roundtable on Sustainable Oil Palm, which is an international organization that certifies oil palm producers. So if you want to sell your oil palm as a clean and responsible oil palm producer, you have to get a certification from them. And part of their regulations is you can't displace people off lands. You have to consult with people. You have to compensate them for their crops. So these people were able to come together with support from civil society to lodge a complaint with the RSPO. And that was very interesting for my findings, to see that, okay, people are saying that these guys just sit there and they don't know how to do anything, but they're actually reacting to these land deals. They're coming together. They're challenging these people, which means that the implications for our country is that business as usual will never go on. So you can't just go in like during Tottenham time where you just push people off the land and give land to Firestone and stuff like that. That wouldn't happen anymore because people are now in this new age of globalization where information is easily available. They see people in other parts of the world reacting to these land deals. They too now react as well, which was very interesting. Tomorrow, it's interesting that you asked me about it. I'll be at the National Library of Wales tomorrow at 11 o'clock talking about my research in Liberia. For
I think what we would do is that, thank you so much. I think Rudolph Kamara, okay, thanks for your understanding. Fidel dealt with that aspect, especially on the show here. What we intend to do, especially what we're talking about, we need to provide some kind of piece of advice as how to, not just the constructive criticism, but we provide the way forward. So your question, Fidel did answer it. If you go back in the video, is there. And just help to share the video around. But Fidel, I think we'll have to find time. Perhaps hopefully we'll see how your schedule will go this week. We want to come here so at least you can share with us the knowledge about the project in detail and what you just coming from telling us. So at least a lot of Liberians will be able to benefit from your project, your research. How is it going to be helpful to all of us, Liberia, in the future as well? So let's hold that. We'll get back to you on a very professional manner, so we can have you on the show exclusively, so we can talk about the project. But for tonight, we just want to appreciate you once again for your, brilliant thoughts, your fine analysis with respect to issues in Liberia. But now that we're done with we've analyzed the speech, and of course trying to link it with the reality on the ground. What advice you have for this administration way forward, starting up with national issues?
Well, there's one advice that is relevant at this particular moment in time, and that's the advice that the president needs to go back and read his speech and listen to himself, do the things that he said he was going to do. Because if you tell him, oh, go and do this, he'll like probably say, oh no, we ain't listening to you. Who are you to tell me to do something? But I think the president, for his own good, needs to go back. He wrote, his advisors wrote the speech. He read it, he approved it, and that's why he delivered the speech to the world. So he needs to go back, and look, Max, as individuals and intellectuals, one of the things that we do on a regular basis is reflect.
Yeah.
It's very important. I was speaking with my supervisor recently because obviously I'm coming towards the end of my PhD in the next few weeks, and well, few days actually, and we had this conversation about reflection. It's like, okay, thesis is fine, the findings are in point, the conclusions are great, you've talked about the implications, but you need to reflect on the process as well. What went well, what didn't go well, what could you have done differently, how would you do things differently in the future? Those are questions that every human being must ask of him or herself periodically. So if you want to do every 6 months, do every 6 months. You want to do every year, do every year. But every human being, for you to move forward in life, and I'm talking to my Liberian people, for you to move forward as an individual, you must reflect. So if you start a project, halfway through the project, stop. Reflect on the project. Okay, we've done this project for the last year. This Propo thing, how well is the Propo working? How many people have we lifted out of poverty? How have we reduced the poverty rate in Liberia by what percentage have we reduced it by? How can what did we do? What did we not do well? And how can we then do things differently in the future? So my advice to the president is very simple. You've got a very good speech. We all agree the speech was well written. He needs to go back and read the speech. He's not listening to himself, but read the speech point by point. The president needs to read the speech point by point and then sit down with himself. And, sometimes you don't need your advisor. Sit and sit. Look, have I done this thing? Have I been a unifier? Have I reached across the aisle? Have I called on people with expertise to come and help for nation building? Have I empowered Liberian businesses by putting in place laws that would mean that we have to offer contracts to them first? Have I done anything in terms of improving agriculture? Have I paid people a decent wage as civil servants so that then they don't become corrupt? Am I protecting the rule of law, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of the press, freedom of assembly, political assembly? Am I doing that? And then because you can be your best critic, you're always your best critic because you can be easy on yourself sometimes. So criticize yourself. It's important. That's what you do when you reflect. Because when you reflect, look, your body can do anything 100% well. We all set off in life, Max. 2018, there's a lot of things you wanted to achieve that you didn't achieve. Yeah. There's some things you achieved, but you didn't achieve it the way you wanted to achieve it. You probably had to go a longer route than you had expected. So you sit down and think about, why did I take the long route? Maybe because I didn't ask people for help. Okay, in the future, when I get stuck, I wouldn't spend 2 hours studying that one thing. I would call somebody and ask them, my brother or my sister, do you know the answer to this thing? Yes. I move forward quicker. So then you write it down. In the future, ask questions. And then when you stop, you call somebody, and ask the question. So that's my biggest advice to the president and to all Liberians, including our officials of government. It's always good to sit down, take time to reflect on your life, what you've done over the last year, over the last month, whatever the period is, and then see where you will find things that you did brilliantly, and then you keep doing those things. You'll find things that you didn't do so well, so you improve those, and you find things that you failed at, and then you find a way to not fail at those things.
Yeah. Fidel, on this note, we say thank you so much. We appreciate you once again. We'll get in touch again. We'll be with you soon. Thank you very much for tonight, and we appreciate you.
Thank you very much for having me, Max.
Have a very good night. Yeah.
Thank you. Suffering, no food to eat.
me say thank you and thank you so much for being there. Thank you for loving Liberia, because if you don't love Liberia, you won't come on this kind of a show and come and listen. Thanks to all of you who contributed. I agree with Fidel. You know, evaluation. We have something they call monitoring and evaluation. There's no project. There's no project. Maybe something. I'm not talking about 1 day project or so, that when you finish it, it's just gone. I'm talking about when you're running an organization and you're running projects, and maybe you have 10 years to run this organization. For every step you take, you have to take note. Then you are monitoring yourself. You take note. You monitor yourself. And now as you go further, you evaluate. Where am I? How far have we come? What did we do yesterday? How did we do it? Monitoring and evaluation. Even in government sector, according to politics, you have to do it. You're running a project. You're running a government, you're running a project. And you have to have people in place that will help you to drive or to actually control the wheels of the ship. So, Mr. President, I want to join my colleague to say yes, Mr. President. Go back. Take this speech. Read it in your own comfort zone, like we say, in your own little corner. And just read this speech again, over and over again, Mr. President. Reflect on it. And ask yourself, point by point. Yes, I talked about empowering Liberians or so. How far have I gone? I talked about opportunity also. Have I created the avenue that people can go to school so that it can be self-empowered tomorrow? On this note, I want to say thank you so much, all of you that have been on the platform. Thank you. God bless you. God bless the continent of Africa. Above all else, may God bless Mama Liberia. As we today officially is the day that we have started the second year of the CDC-led government. All the very, very best. May God speak to you people. Those who are doing the wrong thing, let them change. Those who are not doing the right thing, let them change. Those that are thinking of taking people money, the government money, let them stop it. Thank you. God bless you. Bye-bye for now. Okay, bye.